Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Grace Christian Fellowship. We are happy you are with us today as we continue our money management classes. And today, this is going to be an exciting session because we're going to be talking about growing your business, starting your business, and advancing your business, whichever stage that you are in. We are encouraging your entrepreneurial spirit. And before we get going, just to share a couple things with you, this is number 4 of the session of 5 that we have been presenting, which has been brought to us by Truist Bank and our wonderful instructor, Miss Rose Gill. And next week, we are going to be finishing our 5 sessions out with a session in regards to looking at how you can become a homeowner. That is excellent. That's one thing you don't want to miss. But if you have missed any of our other sessions, we started off with banking basics, and we went to managing your credit, learning about all your credit, and also we talked about, listen, what was our second one?
Budgeting through crisis.
Oh, yes, right. Budgeting through a crisis. That was very, very excellent. And then today we're going to be talking about growing your business. And then next week, we're going to talk about making sure that you learn all the things that will help you into home ownership. Now, just a special announcement. If you have missed any of the sessions that we have presented so far, please, you can go back, whether you are on Facebook or whether you've been joining us on YouTube, and you can watch any of the series. The first series started on Tuesday, July the 27th. And also, just as a special announcement here at Grace Christian Fellowship, we are located at 3815 Woodbine Avenue, which is the community of Cheviot. Tomorrow evening, which is Wednesday, the 18th of August, we have a special guest minister coming in, Bishop Davis, who is going to be leading our Bible study. We welcome you for our 6 o'clock Bible study right here at Grace Christian Fellowship. So without further ado, let me present the wonderful teacher who has been guiding us every step of the way through money management from Truist Bank, Miss Rose Gill.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Tonight, our session is going to be on growing your business, and you might be saying to yourself, "I don't have a business," or I'm not in business for myself." When we went through our second session of how to budget during a crisis, one of the things that we talked about was extra income, added income, income that you're, from things that you are successful at. We went around, someone joined us and said that they flip cars. One person does, she bakes and cooks, and one person sews. So those are all types of business. And one of the things that I love about what I do, I admire people that are going into business for themselves, because, I get to go and take care of their business needs, but it really takes someone special to, go out, because you're on your own. You're in your own. Everything relies on you. So what this class does is that if you are thinking of doing that, or you currently are doing that, this might give you some food for thought and maybe some things that you didn't think of, that you possibly need. And I'll be happy to help you with anything along the way if you have any questions.
I've learned that big things often have small beginnings. We are the first to arrive in the morning, the last to leave at the end of the day, and the only ones who don't get a regular paycheck. Owning a small business requires a commitment beyond punching a clock. You're thinking about it, or doing something about it, all the time. Owning a small business isn't for the faint of heart. It's for the brave, the patient, and the persistent. We know businesses have varying needs, but there are certain things all businesses need to consider. That's why BB&T has designed a hands-on class called Growing Your Business. You'll learn the most critical elements of business ownership, such as separating your personal and business finances, effectively managing your cash flow, the right technology to keep your business up to date, credit options to consider when the need arises, the importance of insurance, things to consider when hiring employees. This class is no cost and will take between 1 and 2 hours. It includes the following: a BB&T professional to act as the on-site coach for the class, an instructional video to watch with breaks for participant discussion and exercises, a participant workbook for each attendee, an opportunity to meet and network with other business owners and share ideas. As you progress through the class, you will be asked to complete worksheets and work with other attendees to help you master the topic presented. Plus, you will be able to ask your on-site coach questions and learn from other business owners. Your BB&T professional will work with you to set up a date and time to present this free financial knowledge class. We look forward to partnering with you to help you grow your business. I've learned that big things often have small beginnings.
Okay, sorry.
We are the first to
Sorry. I apologize. It's going to take a second. So one of the things that they talked about in the intro was keeping your personal and your business separate. And that's where we can all help each other. So what I do when a business comes in is and I don't know if you want to help with, I'm not sure how to, it's not, see if it,
managing your finances can be challenging. Between
Nope.
paying bills, handling credit cards, and saving to buy the things you want in life, it may seem a little overwhelming. It's important to feel confident about the financial decisions you make.
I apologize for that. I'm trying to stop it.
Financial knowledge program called Bank on Your Success. It's a simple way for our clients and
I'll let
others
you get
in
there.
communities we serve
And I'll just talk. I don't know if you want to.
to manage money.
Okay, so something we talk about when we're talking about growing your business is keeping your personal and your business separate. Um, what we have when you're in your own, when you have your own business, you really want to make sure you keep those two things separate, because that's how you determine how your business is doing actually, and what you're spending money on for your business. So when we find, especially when you're just starting up in a business, a lot of times people will, they'll just use you'll use your personal account as their business account. So when you're doing that, you're just creating, a problem for yourself, because as your business grows, you want to make sure that you can track things. It also says how you're doing, because remember, you're in business for yourself. So there is tax implications to some of the things that you're doing. If you're going to be filing taxes, if you're going to be, even if you're doing this on the side, if you're fixing a car or something like that, it's important to kind of keep things separate. And you're asking, well, how do I do that? Well, it's really simple. So we have all different types of, and I'm not trying to open accounts for anybody, but just go to your bank, because there is free checking accounts for businesses. You can do, so when you go on your state website, you can register with the state. That's what most banks will be requiring going forward. We need to make sure we identify who we're doing business for. So I would encourage you to go to your state website, the ohio.gov, and then there's a fast track for business where it gives you instructions step by step how to do that. You're also going to want to get a tax ID number for your business, or EIN, employer identification number. And what that does is that identifies your business. It just takes it a step further and keeps it separate from your social. So you're not commingling exactly what you're doing between your business and your personal. That's really important to recognize. When we talk about how do I keep my business and personal, well, if you think about it, your business is going to have its own tax ID number. You're going to be able to separate the finances on it. And then you're also going to have, even if your business address is the same as your home address, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a separate business. A lot of people work from home. A lot of people were doing that, especially during the times that we've had this year. How many of us did stay home and work from home? Yes. No, I worked, but it's, that's a way that you can think about how you're going to be doing business and how you want to do business. Do you want to work from your home? Do you have a place that you can go? One of the things that we talk about with business, you'll hear a terminology called cash flow. What cash flow is it's how you get money. So it's receivables. So hey, how are you getting paid for what you're doing? Are you going to think about what you're going to accept? What types of payments are you going to accept? Are you going to accept checks? Are you going to accept credit cards? Are you going to have people Venmo you? So there's so many different ways for a business to be paid now. And it's really, that's one other reason why you kind of need to keep things separate, because if there is some issue or something like that, you don't want it to affect your personal finances. You want to keep that separate from your business. So those are all ways that you can kind of think about that. You also need to think about, making your payments. How are you going to make the payments for your business? How are you going to, if you're a craft person or if you're doing crafts or you're fixing cars, how are you going to buy those parts? What are you going to pay for that with? So that's where it all comes in. Even if you're a sole proprietor or you're doing business as, it could be Rose Gill doing business as car fixer. And so I'll open up a separate account in that name. I can use my social, but I'm still keeping it separate. So when you think about that, you look at different options for making payments. And then you want to, if you're in business for yourself, and that's all you are is in business for yourself, you also have to think about the future. So you have to think about, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this forever. What's my plan? And so that's what this kind of helps you think about. That's what this class helps you to think about. What is your plan? So just having those thoughts in your mind, and we've got plenty of the booklets here. So I don't know if any of you want to come by and get some of those. I'll leave some extras here so you can kind of plan through. We talked about cash flow. And one of the things when we're talking about cash flow, I don't know if you can see this sheet here. This is our cash flow sheet. So when I go to a business, I take a look and I say, that's the first thing as I do. I label the top and I put your company name up there. And then I'll ask you questions. I'll say, so ask me, how do you take payments? How do you collect money from your customers? How do you get paid? And that's on the one side. So it's talk about collecting money. And then it talks about when you're making payments on the other side. How do you make payments? Are you going to write checks? Are you going to do online bill pay? Are you going to take credit cards? Because you have to think when you're in business, you have to make it convenient for the customer to pay you. So the more avenues that you offer them, sometimes the more that they'll, I know that I'll even tell people if I have somebody that accepts a credit card, I'll be, if I'm going to their shop and they just accept checks or cash, not everybody has a checkbook. So you need to think, you got to appeal to everybody. So if you accept credit cards, that's another way you can do it. And there's lots of options for you. You really need to research how you're going to accept payments. So if you do accept credit cards, think about the risk for you. A lot of people use that Square. They call it Square. Well, there's a lot of hidden fees that you don't even realize that are involved in that. This is where every one of my sessions, we've talked about being responsible, doing your homework. So research it. Don't just automatically, because it says it only charges you 2.5% for every transaction. It doesn't. Sometimes there's some little added fees. So go to your bank and find out, hey, do you offer credit card processing? How do you pay for that? Do I get a discount because I bank with you? Things like that. So ask those questions and be selfish. think about yourself on that. Yeah.
Can you talk some more about the fees that can be associated with those credit card things?
Yeah.
Since so many people want to pay by credit card, what are some of those fees that you would never know about?
Okay. So Gail was talking about what are some of the fees that we don't know about when we're accepting credit cards from customers. So there's a percentage because everybody's in business, Square, BB&T, everybody. There's a percentage that they charge on top. So whenever someone's swiping the card, there's a percentage added to that. So you get the credit card, you get the money from the credit card, but then there's an added fee. So there's like every month you might get a fee for the 2.5% of whatever you charged, whatever was charged credited towards you. And there's ways to offset those fees, and that's where you really kind of need to do your homework. Also, there are fees if someone wants to use a special card like American Express. Not all credit card companies, credit card processors can accept that. So you have to really do that research too. How are you going to accept credit card payments? Are you going to use your cell phone? That's an option that we have, and I know that Square has, where you can just stick it on top of your cell phone. You have to worry about exposing customers' information, because that's really, that's out there in the World Wide Web, and that's why you want to be protected. And that's one of the things you want to research, like about if you're going to take credit card payments like Square. You might not be protected, so you could be exposing your business to a problem there. Then we talk about how you're going to manage your money. So how am I going to manage my money coming in? How am I going to track that? And that's where you're going to need like the online banking portal. We have a special small business online banking where you can log online and it'll just go on the small business side. You won't see the personal side, or we can connect them. But that's how you keep it separate. So you're going to see all the options that you have just from when you log into the small business online. So again, we're going into how you're going to pay your bills. Well, you can pay through ACH. How am I going to pay if you have some employees? How am I going to pay them? Am I going to pay them with cash or check? Am I going to have them 1099? If you know what that means, that means that they pay the taxes for themselves. So that's, there's just several things that we look at. And then we talk about managing your accounts. So you want to keep something in the side, like especially if you're in small business and you want to have a payroll. You might want to have a separate account for payroll, so that way you can kind of put your money there. And you want to pay yourself. So if you're in business for yourself, you don't want all your money going back into. You need to have income from that. That there has to be an income stream for you, because you got to think down the line. You may, once your business grows, you may want to come to the bank and get something, get a small business line of credit or a credit card. And I'll give you some tips on how you can use that in a little bit. We talked about cash flow. And I know we talked about budgeting, saving and budgeting in the one session. Well, when you're in business, you're going to be budgeting as well. So we talk about a cash flow statement, and this is in your booklet. A cash flow statement just talks about, it's on page 7. It talks about your cash on hand, the beginning. And then you're going to look at what every month, it breaks it down month per month. And then it talks about what are your expenses? Is there advertising? Is there commissions? Is there interest on your loan? So this really breaks it down. It's a budget for your business. So along with having your own personal budget, you're also going to have the cash flow statement for your business. And this really kind of keeps things top of mind. I know, thank you for printing off those personal financial statements. I told you all that I complete one of those every year. And for myself, well, you also need one for your business, because when a bank is looking at you, they look at, okay, how am I doing personally? How am I paying my bills personally? We look at that, and then we look at how your business is doing. So a personal financial statement's about you. The cash flow statement is about your business. So we'll look at all of those things. Certainly.
Would you recommend that someone starting a small business, that they where they have their business account, they go to a different institution for their personal account, or just keep them all together?
That's a good question. So the question was, would I suggest that you go to a separate place, opening your business and your personal? Well, I mean, we keep it separate. We don't mingle them. So when you're coming into the bank and you do a deposit, and let's say someone writes a check to your business, we can't deposit that into your personal account. It has to go into account by the name of the business. And that's where a lot of people that kind of work for themselves get into a little bit of issue, because if I'm cleaning houses or whatever and I make it to Rosie's cleaning service, I can't put it into my personal account. It has to go into a business account with the same title. So yeah, it's okay to have it at the same bank. Many of my business customers like it like that because it's convenient. I can see where my money is. I can, if I need to, if my business is a little bit tight, I can transfer from my personal, and that's a good way of like tracking. So I can track, hey, I lent my business $50 to get by, and then you can pay yourself back. People like that. Some people like it separate. It's a personal preference, truthfully. Good question. And then, we keep talking about cash flow. That's a huge word that the bank uses, and you should be using when you're talking about your business, because you got to think of what's my biggest expenses. When I'm growing my business, depending upon what your business is, what are the costs? So if you are, and a lot of things can be deductible. So you're going to want to, especially if you're working out of your home and you're in business working from home, you're going to want to talk to your tax advisor or CPA, or just do some research to find out, hey, can I deduct my computer? Can I deduct, I know that there's people that take off their mileage that they use their car. So a lot of those things can be, a benefit for you. So that's one reason why, again, you want to keep your business separate from your personal. It's an easier way to track so you can see what you're spending money on.
Question.
Yes.
You mentioned taxes.
Uh-huh.
Will banks help you find a tax advisor?
Will banks help you find a tax advisor? Yeah. We do a lot of networking between our customers and things like that. I'm the type of banker, if I refer you to somebody, I've used them and I trust them. So that's why a lot of people will go like to their banker and say, hey, do you know of a good CPA? Do you know of a good tax program? There are areas and things that people that can help you with that. So many times we will refer within the bank. We don't have tax preparer ourselves inside the bank, but I mean, I have customers that are tax preparers that I trust. So that's what I do. Yes. And then when you're in business, especially because we talked about the budget, if you're struggling, think of the areas that you could cut costs. How can I cut costs? What can I, where can I cut that it's not going to impact my business? So all of those things really take a lot of thought. You want to optimize, from the time when you get paid from your customer. So let's say you're, and one of the things that people look at, especially like landscapers and things like that, they may be doing a landscaping job. They have to buy the bushes and the flowers and everything up front. So before they even put those in the ground, they're already out of pocket, got money out of pocket. So when you're in business for yourself, you got to think of kind of clever ways. How can I optimize my money? One of the ways that I like to help businesses that I'll tell them is use the bank's money. So remember, we talked about credit. That's another thing it's important that you have good credit. That impacts your business as well. So if you're just a business startup and you're doing this, I would suggest getting a business credit card. So that way you have 30 days in between from which you bought those bushes to when you get paid from the customer. And then you think about what if it rains and then I'm delayed from putting those bushes and planting that grass. Well, then you're going to have to pay that payment. And what a bank looks at is, how are they paying their credit card? So if you're maximizing your credit limit and not paying it, that impacts you negatively, because when I am a business, I am guaranteeing the bank that I'm going to pay that back. So I'm going to sign on that credit card application, even though it's Rosie's Lawn Service. I'm signing that application for Rosie's Lawn Service. So they're going to look at my credit. And that's just going to help you be successful in your business. Most banks like to see 2 to 3 years worth of financials from your business. But we're lessening up on that. We realize that there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that, they have really good ideas and they just started, they started all this stuff up, and it's really, it's mind boggling how many business accounts have started during the pandemic. People are realizing that they have talent and they have things to offer. They have alternate ways of making money. And it's I love watching, I love seeing that, I love being a part of it. So having said that, that's where you need somebody. You need to sit down with a banker and say, here's what my options are, because I'll grow with you. I'll tell your story to whoever, underwriting or whatever. Also, there's networking groups. If you go to the bank, there's all kinds of, like I'm involved in the Covington Business Council. There's all types of ways that you can get involved in your community and be a part of those and advertise your business for free. It's a good way. A lot of those networking groups are a really good way for you to put your business name out there and have it be, and they'll give you business by using, getting to know these people. That's huge. I know I'm in a few networking groups like that. So that's just some extra ways that we can, you can think about how you're going to earn money and how you're going to, pay things back and manage it. We talked about credit card processing. You also need to think of, are you going to have a credit card machine? All of that costs money. So if you're going to have a credit card machine, that's going to be a lot of times the bank will let you rent it. A lot of times they could have a program where you get it for free. I know right now we've got some programs at BB&T where you can get your credit card processing, possibly for free. It's based on if you have a checking account with us and things like that. You also want to think about, are they going to swipe their card or are they going to use a chip? These Apple Pays, that's another way that people are all those things. And then you got to look at what type of business are you? Are you a restaurant? Because all of those have different ways, because you got to think of tips. Am I going to give tips? Am I, things like that. So all of those things, and we have, and what I would do is if you're in business for yourself and you want to accept credit card payments, I would go to your bank and I would sit with your banker, and then they can have somebody from their credit card processing area be there with you to talk through, the different ins and outs and possibly what the fees would be for you. And that way you'd be able to make a good decision. Yeah.
You mentioned just a bit ago about paying for a contractor, or let's say you own the Rosie's Lawn Care Service.
Yep.
And you need to pay the guy who mowed a couple lawns for you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say that you should have another bank account, a separate bank account to pay those contract employees, or how did you say that?
Some of those payroll account. She asked about paying, if you're paying contract employees, like if you're a landscaper or something like that, and you're paying extra people. I'm a proponent of keeping, especially if it's not costing me anything, I'm a proponent of keeping things separate. So that way you can track your payroll, especially with, you're going to know, hey, this is my payroll and I'm keeping that separate in this separate account. So this is what I've paid my people throughout the year. Might be easier for you just to keep things separate. And that's a good question about that. We talked about borrowing solutions, and eventually, when you're in business, most businesses need borrowing solutions. We talked about the credit card, accepting credit card payments or paying things with your credit card. I said use the bank's money, and what does that mean? If the bank's going to give you a credit limit, based on how your business is doing and how your credit is, you could have a decent limit, enough to pay for those items and then, pay it back in 30 days. Well, down the road, sometimes, like we talked about, what if it's raining? What if, then you might want a line of credit to go along with your credit card. So, a line of credit is something that has to be revolving. And what I mean by revolving is just like your credit card payments, you need to pay them off. A bank wants to see that every month that credit card, if I have a $10,000 line of credit for my business, I want to make sure that I'm revolving that, at least half of it being paid back every time. And how are you going to do that? Well, we talked about, you purchase things with your, be smart. I'll help you with a plan. Um, I keep going back to the landscaper, but that's like a perfect scenario for how this kind of works. So I buy all the bushes and flowers, and I'm using my BB&T or whatever bank credit card, purchase all of that. I've got 30 days. Well, guess what? It rained and it's poured and everything. Well, then I've got my line of credit in place. So what am I going to do with my line of credit? I'm going to turn around. I'm going to draw off my line of credit. I'm going to pay off my credit card. Then I get another 30 days. So I got 60 days. So you see how, how that works. It's just, I want you to be smart and to use your money in a beneficial way for you. So that you're not, we're not throwing money out the window. You're going to be able, then by that time, the customer would have paid you. You pay off your line of credit. You start all over again. Pay yourself, do everything you need. There's people that use their line of credits for their payroll if it's tight. As long as if you know you got some jobs coming up and things, that's a good way to do that. We have some people, if you're in business for yourself, we can use your home as collateral for a loan for your business. There's equipment loans. So let's say you're a driver, one of these Uber drivers or something, but banks are really, we're kind of shedding away from that a little bit just because that's a business that's, it's relying on, people purchasing things. So maybe that was a bad example. Maybe if you're driving, for whatever, a service, what we would need is to see how you're doing, how you're getting paid. That's the questions we're going to ask. And then let's say I want to buy a car that's specifically for my business. I can use that car as the collateral for my business. So you got to think about that. So it's just one of those things. I've had people use, like I said, their homes. So I have equity in my home. I need to get a building or something. I could use my home as equity and put it on, get a business loan for it. Then I turn around, the business pays for my home equity. That's all part of, we help you plan all of those things. So there's just all different types of ways. And what I do is I tell your story. I tell your story to the underwriter because they're going to ask questions. They're going to say, okay, Rosie's Lawn Care Service, what do you need the lawnmower for? Well, I need the lawnmower so I can increase my business and I can cut twice as much grass, and this is the income I'm going to get. So I tell your story. So when I'm talking to the underwriter, I'll say, well, and have facts, have some facts, and say, if I cut 20 more lawns, I'm going to make this much more money. That will more than pay for that lawnmower. And that's what they need to hear. So, and that's what I do, is I tell your story. I am fighting for you. I want you to get what you need. Yes?
You mentioned an underwriter. What is the definition of an underwriter?
Good question. So what is the definition of an underwriter? So when we're keying loans at the bank, there is a back office that those people specifically are detailed in finance, and they look at how you're doing business, and they look at your tax returns. They look at what is the collateral. Is it because the bank's taking a risk because you could walk away, and then we're left with that collateral, or we're left with nothing because you can do an unsecured loan too. So if your credit's good and your businesses can do unsecured. So the bank's left holding the bag. So that's why we research everything. We look at everything about you and make sure that we're making our best possible decision. And that's what the underwriter does. So I basically am just your advocate. And then I gather all the information, and then I take it to the underwriter, and then they decision it and say, approved. They may even counteroffer and say, I think this vehicle or this lawnmower, they could find one for this. They'll research. So if you're a lawnmower, want to buy a lawnmower, they're going to say, okay, let's look at the collateral. And then they do their research. They don't just take off what you say that lawnmower's worth that. We have to have the proof. We have to show We might pull something up on Amazon or something like that. We usually ask for a purchase order. So if you're buying it from a dealer or some reputable company, we'll ask for the purchase order. How much does that cost? So that we know that we have in there what exactly we're using as collateral. So we talked about equipment loans. That's the same thing. So with that lawnmower is your equipment. We have unsecured loans for businesses. We also have revolving credit lines, which we talked about. We have a term loan. Term loan is where it's set out monthly pay. It's just like installment loans. Sometimes on the business side, a term loan, it can be a little bit more detailed because what we'll do is for instance, if you're buying a piece of property, we'll term it out for 10 years, but we might amortize it over 25. So your payments are less. So at the end of that 10 years, we're going to say, okay, here's, you might have to have a balloon payment. And then we look and see, okay, well, let's just refinance that. So that's where you really need to work with a banker on that. We have secured loans. We talk about the collateral, the lawnmower or the truck, those type of things. All of those loans, there's just many types. We also have what's called an SBA loan. That's a small business association loan that we've talked about a little bit, where it's kind of the government helps us. They help us, especially it's really good for startups because the bank's not taking all the risk. The government's there to help you, and so they buy into it with you. But we still have to gather all the information and do everything we're going to do, and then the SBA gets involved, and then they will say, okay, we'll take on this loan. We'll help this person. So it's a little bit detailed. It does take a little bit more time. I think the very first class we had a young lady here that was in business for herself, or she was getting all of her paperwork together. And we talked about a business plan. That's one of the things that the SBA is going to need. They're going to need a business plan. You can look up online how to make a business plan. It's just basically projecting out what it's going to cost you to do business. We like to see 3 years of projections. So if my grass cutting business, they want to see that I planned it out for 3 years. What is my gas going to cost? What is my lawnmower going to cost? How am I going to, so all of those things, they want to see projected out. And that just shows that you did your homework. So when you do your homework, the bank's going to take an interest and say, this person's serious. They may ask you for a little bit of a down payment, especially if you're talking about bigger purchases like buildings or something like that. If they ask for a down payment, we want to see that you're able to help. You're able to, we have what's called skin in the game. You have skin in the game, so you're less likely. If I've invested something in myself, you're less likely to walk away because the bank is the one that's taking the risk by giving you the money, because you're going to walk out with the check and buy whatever you're going to buy, or we pay for whatever we're going to pay for. Let's see. The next thing we're going to talk about is insurance. A lot of people don't think about insurance when you're in business for yourself. If you're, no matter what you do, if you're cleaner, if you're a lawnmower person, you have to have insurance, because not only will that help you get more customers, because you're going to be insured. They know that they're protected. So if I'm cleaning somebody's house, they're going to ask, what if you dropped my priceless vase? How's that going to be covered? What if you get hurt? Or so that's one of the things when you're in business for yourself that people don't think of. It's a little bit, and it's not that, oh my gosh, insurance, it's so expensive. You just need to really, talk with people and find out. They'll ask you, how are you going to, what do you do? So do you go into people's houses and clean? Do you cut people's yards? Are you responsible? What coverage do you? We have people that specialize in that, so that you'll be protected. They won't come back after you. And that's what you don't want. You got to think about your employee. If you have employees, you're going to want to think of your employees. That's another area where we help. We put on these financial education classes for your employees for free. That's a benefit. If you can have an employee that sticks with you, that they know that you care, and just having them sit down with a banker, it just kind of shows that, hey, they've taken an interest in me. So those are the types of things you really, it's just important. And then we can work with you through payroll. There's all different types of payroll. We have a partner that we partner with is ADP. Even if you are, because everybody has to pay taxes, even if you are a sole proprietor and you have to pay yourself, you have to tax yourself too. So they can help you with all of that, and they can have it so where you're giving yourself a paycheck. That's just what important. It makes it so you got all your bases covered when you're doing this. You have to think about if you're have a full-time employee or a part-time employee. Are you going to offer them benefits? What's a benefit? Are you going to offer them insurance and things like that? So once your business grows, this is where you go back and you sit down and you visit with your banker. So you might start off where it's just you, but then you start getting employees and you start getting helpers, and so that's where it kind of grows, and that's where you need to constantly stay in contact with your banker or with the bank. We're there, like I said, we're there to help you. We are your advocate. So let's see here. How are you going to pay your employees? We talked about the payroll. Are you going to pay them biweekly or weekly? Are you going to pay them cash? You always need to think about, if you're paying someone cash, how are you going to document that? I mean, I probably wouldn't. Yeah. So one of the things you're going to think about is anything to do with your business. How is it going to benefit you? And because at the end of the day, you're in business for yourself. So you want to make sure that you're the person that's benefiting from this, and that the people that you're working with are benefiting from this. So when we're, make sure I cover everything. Borrowing. We just talked about employees, and one of the things that we really look at is things to think about when you're hiring employees. Where are you going to get how are you going to get your employees? And what kind of things can you offer them? And part of it is just, not only how you pay them and how you take care of them and you look at them financially, you help them with insurance, but just the whole picture. Because when you have a loyal employee, I don't know how many of you out there have, worked for an employer and you're really loyal to them. But sometimes it's like, what are they going to do for me? So you have to kind of show them the benefits that are there for them. And that's what's going to help you get through in your business. Is there any, yeah. She said a lot of people are using contractors, and that's how they're doing. And that is a perfect way. And that's part of the things where the contractors are 1099. So you don't have to worry about paying them taxes or anything, but you still want to sit down with a payroll company and see, how does that affect me? When we went through the crisis, I don't know if everybody heard of the PPP loans, where it was payroll protection. You had to track, because those are independent contractors. So we had businesses coming and trying to claim them and say that they were employees and that they had to, and no, they're not. So those people they were independent contractors. They could have got a PPP loan themselves. So that was like some of the things that I learned, especially during that process, because there was so many people trying, and there was help out there for small businesses, but because people didn't document things correctly. I had people that were taking cash and didn't get a receipt or didn't have any way of documenting how they got paid. And then they would come in with a piece of paper written saying this is what they did. Well, you're talking about an assistance program where the government's giving you money. I have to have a little bit more proof than a piece of paper you wrote on. So think about that, because you never know. We could go through this crisis again, and you being prepared is going to be really important. Yes.
You talked about
So that's just basically how you're going to pay. So you would go to the, your tax advisor and say, I'm going to have this 1090, I'm going to be a 1099 employee, because they're going to want to determine how they're going to get paid. So like if you're going to get paid by a check, and how are those things going to be written? You can't have taxes taken out because you got to pay your own taxes. So, and so you have to have a way of documenting that. That's where you still need to kind of have a tax advisor or somebody helping you with that. Yes.
I was just gonna say, people that I know, they, when the contractor does work, they have them submit an invoice with their business name, all of that,
Yep.
and then they pay them by check.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the year, depending on the amount or whatever, it's over $600,
Yeah.
then they turn it over to their accountant to print out a 1099 for them.
Yes.
They keep track
Yep.
of all the contracts.
She was talking about when you are a contracted employee, usually what you would get is a invoice from the business, and then you would give them an invoice, and then they would write you a check. You still have to track all of that stuff, for all of these purposes that we're talking about. And it's not only important for you as an independent contractor, it's important for the business to keep track. Hey, how am I paying my employees? How much did that job, cost me? Because at the end of the day, you're going to pass that on to the person that you did the job for. So that's going to be really important to track, hey, how am I doing it? And we talked about, circling back, that's where you're going to, the fees that you charge for things. So let's say I do take credit cards, or I do want to do that. That's all added in there. I'm going to add, so if you want to pay by credit card, I'm going to add a little bit of fees onto your charge, because I have to pay that credit card company. And I think people are, I'm okay with that. If I want the convenience using my credit card, I know that there's added fees in there. You got to think anything that you do now, everybody adds in, and that's where the plan comes in, because you got to think, if you're advertising, if you're, anything that you're doing, you have to have a plan for that, because there is a cost involved. So that's all a part of doing business. So you got to think, and that's what that worksheet helps you. The cash flow, what I call it, the budget, the cash flow budget sheet. That's what helps you, because it makes you think of everything that maybe you didn't even think of, and it gives you, it goes into detail. So once you add all that up, that's what determines what you're going to charge your business, the people that you're doing business with. And your time's valuable. Going to the bank, I know that people, there's businesses that they'll take checks. They'll have their worker go drop the checks off. Well, that worker's probably still on the clock. What's that costing? If it's a lot, you might want to look. There's options for you at the bank that you don't have to go to the bank. You could take a mobile deposit picture. You can do, so all of those things are available to you. You just need to think about it. What's costing me money? Are they charging you gas? If you're giving your employees credit cards, if you apply for a business credit card, you can actually divide out the credit cards to your employees. So I can have Joe have a credit card, Sam have a credit card, and I can assign limits to those credit cards. So I know, and I can track all their spending, so I can see what they're doing. That's another reason why you'd probably want to, think about things like that. But yes.
I was just gonna say, sometimes when you're starting up a business, one might be careful of their expenses,
Mm-hmm.
and when they're getting ready to pay themselves.
Yep.
They get caught up in so many expenses until there's nothing to really pay themselves with. So kind of leveling that out.
Yep.
Um,
She's talking about expenses, and then spending so much money. I think we kind of talked about that at the beginning. You spend so much money on things, and you're trying to give them a deal. Your time is worth money. What you do is worth money to people. So if I'm cleaning for you, if I'm whatever, my time's worth money. And if you do a good job, I've always found people will pay. They're willing to pay for it, especially if it takes something off their list. So it's really, and that's what this class is really geared towards, is just the startups and having just having the knowledge. So when you go in, you're not, blind, and you're not thinking of, what am I going to do? How am I going to sit with your banker and have a plan? But first, you got to really have a plan for your business before you even go sit with the banker. Think about your business. What is it costing you? Detail it out. Then go sit with a banker and say, hey, here's my plan. What do you think? I want to start a business account. They're going to guide you. They're going to tell you first you need to be registered with the Secretary of State. You should have an EIN unless you're going to do a sole proprietor or doing business as. And some people pay attorneys and things like that. You can do all that yourself for free. Well, not registering with the state. The state's always going to charge you. They're going to charge you to register your business, but you can do that yourself. Attorneys would probably charge, I don't even know. I think they charge hundreds of dollars to do it. When you can go right on the irs.gov, get your own EIN number, and it'll also detail, it'll kind of go into the detail. Do I want to be an LLC, which stands for limited liability company? Do I want to be a sole proprietor? Do I want to be a corporate? All of those things. It goes into details of what those are. Ultimately, you have to do the research. You start it out. Then when you come up with that knowledge and you have, hey, I have my plan. This is what I want to do. We can help you. And then we're your banker. We're here for you. So it's the way to get started. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
At some point in time, I know you can't do it today, but would you also consider talking about, we just talked about how to start a business and things to consider, but what about, especially if you go through another shutdown,
Yep.
when you have to shut down a business, or when you have to deal with foreclosure,
Yep.
deal with those kinds of things.
Yeah.
What kinds of things should people be considering, even at startup time? God forbid that we have to do this, but we have to do that.
Yep. And that's where the business plan really comes in handy, because, oh yeah, he was saying, having a plan. So what happens if your business does get shut down because of what happened during the pandemic before? And seriously, it was sad because there was a lot of businesses that shut down. Some of them didn't have the guidance. They didn't know. I would talk to customers and say, "Did you apply for the PPP?" No, I didn't think I could. They'd never even bothered to ask, and all of that was available to them. So it's really important that you want to make sure that what kind of business am I in? And we talked about your talents. That's something that I think that everybody found out during this pandemic was we have other talents. There's other things that we can do that we can earn some money doing that. So when, if it did come out of this pandemic, that's a positive. There was you talk about small businesses. Look at how the businesses have changed. Look at how they've gone. I'll just give you for instance. There was a little store, a little restaurant up in where I live in Alexandria, and it was just starting up. And it's it's a soda shop, and it's one of those old type cafes where they had the little stools. You got up and sat in the stool. And when the pandemic, you weren't allowed to go in there. So what'd they do? They opened up the window on the side, and they put a sign out there, and they advertised on Facebook. And they don't even open up their restaurant now. They still are. The chef cooks one type of meal, and everybody calls in. And when the food runs out, it runs out. And they are booming. They are booming, and they never thought that that would happen during the pandemic. People doing things. There's a lot of little businesses that started up. People like that were at home and were bored. Little craft shops have popped up. little painting things, and stuff that you can do online. And, I've seen more and more things about, you know, hair care and things like that. So just that all came out of the pandemic. I mean, those were not there before. And so businesses had to be creative. So you need to have a plan. You want to plan for things aren't going the best. So that's where, the financial plan really comes into play, and thinking about, okay, what's my backup? What's my backup plan? What if, you know, everybody still had their grass cut? Everybody, I don't know about the house cleaning. People didn't want people in their house. So that was a little bit rough when you think about that. But delivery drivers went hog wild, so that there's all different types of things that people are doing now that to make money. And it's your imagination can just go wild and do what you want to do. People believe in you. People will support you as long as you have a good idea and you have a plan. You're welcome. You're welcome. If there's any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And then I'll be here next week for becoming a homeowner. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Well, we truly first want to say thank you so much. I know you will be here next week, but you have given us information that has made us think and consider and rethink and reconsider some things. Yes, ma'am.
Here's a question I missed. Person asked, I know several credit card processing services were mentioned. Is there one that stands out or is better than the other for new small business?
There we go. Here
Okay.
we go.
Good question. Okay, so this is where on that question you need to kind of do your research. A lot of people automatically go to the Square because you get your little, machine and stuff. I think they don't charge you for it or whatever. Your bank probably has the same thing, and you want to think about being protected, especially being a new business and starting out. You want to make sure, and that's a cost of doing business. So if you're going to accept credit card, you're going to add that. We talked about adding those service fees back in to whatever you're doing, but you want to benefit yourself. And actually, if you're seasonal, credit card companies realize that. Let's say I just do crafts in the summer. Well, they realize that. So you will get your fee would be different than others. So that's why you really need to kind of sit down with somebody that is in that's merchant services, and they can kind of talk through and say, they'll ask you, is your business cyclical? Is it seasonal? Grass cutting is a perfect thing. But guess what? In the wintertime, what are they doing? They're shoveling snow.
Yes.
Or they're raking leaves. So, all of those things, people have found ways, so really you have to kind of sit down and do your research and make sure that you're protected. That's my main thing. Don't just go for the cheapest. Sometimes you get what you pay for. That's my lesson of the day.
As you can tell by that last question, people are watching. Now, we will continue to air these programs on Grace Online. And if you have any other questions, even after they have been aired, yes, ma'am. It's going to be it's on YouTube as well, excuse me. And if you have any other questions as we go on, please write them down, get to us, and we will get an answer for you. Even if we have to go pick up Sister Rose from her bank and sit down with her, we will get you an answer to your question. Amen. That's good. Thank you so much. We want to remind you, next week we're talking about home ownership. Home ownership. And I'm sure there's going to be 1,000 questions.
Yeah.
Is it for you? What kind of home can you afford? Is it better to buy a freestanding home or a condominium? Or what? There's a myriad of things to consider. Here's a startup home, or is this going to be your forever home? and this and this and so forth and so on and those kinds of things. So again, I ask you, write your questions down, either get them to us beforehand or come here with your questions. Now, we have challenged this young lady in the past. We told her, if you're not prepared to answer questions, don't come back. She's been coming back. Am I right? She's been coming back and been answering questions. So please come with your questions and be prepared to be blessed. Thank you so much for joining us. Amen.